Football then and now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us.
Well, it's been 3 weeks since the football show has been on. This is Football Then and Now. I am your host, Stuart Palmer, and I've got a returning guest who was on with us during the Europa League final week in May. It's none other than returning guest John Scott, big Tottenham fan. We've got a huge North London derby preview to get through, of course, as well. But thank you so much for coming back on, John.
Pleasure as always, Stu, to be here. Feels like a long time.
I'm going to open with the fact that obviously there's been a lot of change during the summer. New manager, of course, Thomas Frank. And from the outside looking in, me being an Evertonian, of course, I think it's been pretty solid, hasn't it, with Thomas Frank and the lads and the new ownership?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. I think the home form hasn't been particularly brilliant, but the away form obviously has been where it's at the moment. But like anything, Stu, in this modern day and age, everybody wants success now. There's no waiting anymore. Obviously, we've lost Ange Postecoglou. That guy's been in another job and already lost it in the time you and I have spoke. So that's what I'm saying. Football is ever evolving, but it's fast. It's really fast. But yeah, there's been a lot of change at Spurs.
How do you feel in terms of the new personnel that have come in? From what I've seen of Mohamed Kudus, I think he's been fantastic for you. Saw glimpses of it at West Ham. But again, as I always say to you, when you come on from your psyche, watching them week in, week out, going the games, how's Kudus been as a new addition for you?
Oh, it's been a breath of fresh air, Stu. I have had a few West Ham fans actually say to me, careful what you're getting here. I think you might have overspent. But I get the feeling with Kudus at the end of his West Ham reign, because they was playing him in all kinds of positions, up front, left, right. They were just kind of trying to put him in anywhere to try and get results. I feel like he just maybe dipped for them, his attitude wasn't there for them. But since he's arrived at Spurs, you've only got to look at his dribbling statistics. I think it's the best in the Premier League. Very rarely uses it. And yeah, he's been a massive surprise in a great way for me personally. So I didn't think... I kind of thought, what are we getting? We've spent this kind of money before. It hasn't always worked out. Talk about players like Ndombele that we haven't seen since, and Lo Celso that we spent 60-odd million on, and they didn't work out. But he's been brilliant, Stu. Really good on that right side.
I think him and Richarlison have linked up well from what I've seen as well. We keep getting linked with Richarlison. It's not going to happen, I don't think, personally, because Frank has used Richarlison so much, mate. So I don't buy into it. You see all this all the time. Richarlison won't be leaving you guys. I just can't see it.
Yeah, I think it's just a thing that's thrown around, isn't it, Stu? Because obviously the link, he's got such a good rapport with Everton. I even saw at the end of the game we played with you, he went over to the Everton fans and was signing stuff with them. So he's obviously got that rapport with the fans, and I think maybe that's where the links come from. The season before last, he was linked to a lot of Saudi Arabia clubs, but actually he said no. He actually turned it down quite a lot, which I think a few Spurs fans were surprised because he wanted to stay in the Premier League. So it's a difficult one for Richarlison, because if you remember the first game, he scored 2 fantastic goals for Spurs, and we thought, hang on a minute, maybe Thomas Frank has got him playing. And I thought for a little while, if you think about Thomas Frank, his success with people like Ivan Toney, Mombrena, and players like that at Brentwood, he's always plays towards the forward. So I thought it'd be good for Richarlison, but unfortunately it's just dipped off for him. And he's the thing is with Richarlison, you all know this, Stu, he can't fault his effort. He's just tirelessly running around. He's a nightmare. If you're an opposition fan, you hate him. If he's playing for your team, you love him. He's that type of player,
Definitely. Again, I love him to bits. I really do. I think also it's keeping him fit, isn't it? That's been a big talking point. Yeah. His fitness, even when he was with us, but he has played a lot of football this season already, to be fair to him, hasn't he? Although he has been blighted by injuries previously.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's been... like I say, he's had a bit of a mixed bag, but then so has a lot of the Spurs players, to be honest with you. When we talk about them, couple of other players that obviously Spurs were linked to. Obviously, we had the whole shenanigans with Morgan Gibbs-White, which just was crazy. Because you remember when we signed Kudus, it was back to back almost. We were going to get Kudus and Morgan Gibbs-White in 2 days. It was a miracle. And then obviously It looked like Marinakis had probably held a gun or something to him, and that stopped that happening, and we didn't get him. And then we were heavily linked with Eze, and that went south pretty quick. And then we ended up with Xavi Simons, who, to be fair, on like the FM games, as you and I sometimes used to play, Stu, and stuff like that, he's always one of those wonder kids I'd go for. So I've always been a bit of a fan of him, but again, he's had a very, very shaky start. He had a really good game in the Champions League the other week, but that's the best we've seen him. Other than that, he's been a little bit lightweight for the Premier League. I'd probably make comparisons to him and what's going on at Liverpool with Wirtz at the moment. I think they're suffering that sort of physicality side of the Premier League, but he's definitely got the quality, that kid. That's for sure. So, yeah, I'll tell you the other good one, Stu, is Paulinho. He's been really, really good. He's only on loan. We do have an option to buy him. I hope Spurs take full use of that, because I think it's only 28 million, something like that, the buyout clause. But he's been as good as he was at Fulham. I don't know what happened at Bayern Munich. I'd only read that he'd only played 16 games last season, so I don't know what sort of a chance he got there. But in terms for us, he's everywhere on that pitch, and we haven't had someone like that since Højbjerg, and we've really missed it. Someone just breaking up a bit of play.
It's nothing to sign him permanently, that figure, is it? And again, like you say, just what he's done prior, knows the league, knows the physicality. Yeah, I've been impressed with him. I really have. And Mickey van der Ven, and that absolute barnstormer of a goal against Copenhagen as well. Been coming in with goals. Again, he's had his injuries, hasn't he, for you over his period at Spurs. But again, he's looked fantastic. An absolute pain in the backside against us when I was in attendance for the game.
I can imagine. He's unbelievable. So I mean, it's very rare that you get so excited about a centre back. But anytime he gets the ball and he starts running a couple of metres in front, the Spurs fans are up. You just don't know what you're going to get. Is he going to make 100-metre dash to the goal line, or is he going to stay, And I think it gives opposition a lot of problems as well, because they don't know if he's just suddenly going to go on a huge burst. I don't know if you saw the game. He played for Holland on the international break, and he'd done something similar there. But for Holland, he plays on the left. He actually plays left back for them, and it gives him even more freedom to go forward. He's a bit like Jan Vertonghen used to be for Spurs in that sort of period. Because if you think of the Holland, they've got obviously Virgil van Dijk. They've who's the other fella they've got at the back? They've got De Ligt. They've got I think of who else. I mean, but they've got a really good amount of centre backs. Nathan Ake, players like that. So they're not short in that department. So Van der Ven only gets in at left back. But honestly, that goal was fantastic. I mean, when you watch it in slow mo, Stu, and you just see the defenders just totally out of breath trying to chase him down. It reminded me of the goal that Son scored against Burnley many years ago, where he just ran through them. But that was a great finish as well. It's a striker's finish.
Definitely was. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what a goal. And I knew, I was like, John will be so happy after seeing that. Again, solid start for you in the Champions League, of course. 2 wins, 2 draws. How has it been from your perspective with that start? Again, Bodo Glimt, they've been in the competition for a while. I didn't think that was necessarily a bad point on the road. You've beaten Villarreal, you've beaten Copenhagen, and a draw in Monaco as well. I think you should be relatively pleased with the start.
Yeah, to be honest, it's not just me being a bit big-headed here. When I looked at who we had in the Champions League fixture-wise, I felt pretty confident, because I've got to be honest with you, Stu, this new structure, and I know you and we spoke about this a couple of years ago when this new structure was being introduced, and we said we'd give it a bit of time to see how it goes. Well, for me, there's 2 big flaws. One is whoever does win this league, like Liverpool won it last year, what kind of benefit did they really get? I don't think it was a great incentive to go out and try and win the league. I think that's a problem. But I think what you'll find is, because there's so many teams in this now, the quality is slightly diluted for me. Like some of these games we get in the Champions League, it's a bit Europa League-y to me. Like I turn up there, we get the Champions League anthem. That means you're in it. But in terms of the quality, Stu, it's not like the old nights where, four teams in a group, top 2 go through, and I don't know, there's just something a little bit missing. I know why they do it, for the money. But when I saw the fixtures, obviously we've got Paris to come. That's going to be a tough one. I don't expect us to get much there. But Dortmund at home, I'd fancy us in that, to be honest with you, to finish it off. But Yeah, I always sort of thought we could get through. I think where the real work starts is when you get into that knockout stage. To be honest with you, and that's probably going to be a test of where Spurs are. But so far, so good. And let's be honest, Stu, we finished 17th last year. There's a lot of people that say we shouldn't be in the Champions League, um, especially Man United fans, I'm sure, at the moment. But we're in it, so you can only do what you can do. And Thomas Frank has never played in the Champions League, or Europe in general. So it's been a bit of a learning curve for him as well, I think.
Definitely. Again, from where you were, domestically, and as you said all along, you got to be in it to win it, and great, and great to see the start, of course, and again, and going well in the league as well. I think
Yeah.
a lot
Well,
of
like I say, we just need to. What the problem we're having at the moment is the home form. I think the stat at the moment is we've only won 3 of the last, I think it's 19 or 20 games at home, and that's a problem because in front of your home fans, going to Everton, Stu, once it's fine doing away, but if the main fans don't get the sort of wins off the back of it, or we're drawing too much, it does create a bit of an odd atmosphere. And I think that's happened, and it's sort of affected the players a little bit as well. So that's the only thing to sort out. But in terms of the setup away, I think Thomas Frank's been very practical. We've started to see these. I know probably you spoke about this many times, but the long throwers come back. We've got Kevin Danso doing Rory Delap now every game, and I'm sure you would have seen it in the game you went to, Stu. Our Spurs were doing a lot more of that, and set pieces have improved. I mean, if there was one. I love Ange Postecoglou, but if there was one flaw in the whole thing, was setting up for set pieces was a bit of a disaster. I feel a lot more confident, not just defending, but also like getting set pieces in ourselves and scoring. And I think you guys hadn't conceded a corner for God knows how many games until it happened twice in that game that we played you. So I think we're doing well in that department. And I keep saying this, Stu, but like fans, especially Spurs fans, I think they feel like we should be in the top 4 this year. You've got to remember, we finished 17th for a reason. It weren't just injuries. There's a lot more to it than that. It's going to take time. He's a new manager. You can't just expect miracles overnight. I think where we are now, I would have taken that, at the very beginning. If you'd have said, this is where we can get Thomas Frank's coming in, he's got to get his ideas across. It's coming out of a very high line with Ange Postecoglou into a much more practical, and we do look a lot more solid at the back. Romero, Van der Ven are a fantastic partnership, but again, it's going to take time to get the whole team. I think one of the criticisms at the moment is the front 3. What can they do? We've touched on Kudos has been a fantastic signing, but the left is a bit of a problem. The striker's a bit of a problem. Dominic Solanke's been out for a while. We've got Kolo Muani on loan, but not with an option to buy. So again, going to be interesting to see what they do. I don't like that sort of thing, Stu. I don't know how you feel with loans, but when there's a loan without an option, I always feel like, well, if that player does really well for you, what's stopping Chelsea coming in at the end of the season going, well, there you go, 30 million, come to us? Because obviously you're doing their legwork for them and saying, well, he can play in the Premier League. If he suddenly scored 20 goals for Spurs, I'd be worried that we'll ever be able to keep him. So, but I do feel like it was a sort of last minute thing just to give us cover because we didn't manage to get it. But I would love to see a striker coming in January. I do think he needs a target man because the amount of crosses we put in the box now is very different to what we were doing with Ange and Kudos and Xavi Simons. And hopefully when Kulusevski gets back and Maddison, I think it's going to be a lot more aerial for us. But we need that sort of big centre forward. Very hit and miss with Dominic Solanke, but then you never know with Thomas Frank. Could he change his game for him?
Definitely. No, very, very positive. Frank was probably one of the most sought after managers in the league for other clubs as well. You'd put Andoni Iraola in that same bracket now with what he's done at Bournemouth. I know they took a tonking the other week against Villa, but other than that, they've been. Bournemouth have done brilliant with limited resources as such. Again, Frank I think was just a fantastic It's just fantastic.
Yeah,
For you
I
guys.
when this happened, when we knew the news of obviously Ange Postecoglou wasn't going to be there anymore, it was really for me Thomas Frank or Glasner. They're the two that I wanted. Because Glasner, again, he's got something about him. He can work with very limited resources and get some great results out of it as well. But Thomas Frank, if you think where he's come from, Stu, all the way from the Championship, he started as an assistant manager down there, so he's earned his stripes, with that. And yeah, hopefully, I think with the team he's got around him, because he has been able to bring in his whole coaching team, which is a big bonus, and we did have a big clear out of the coaching team at the beginning of the season, and finally we have what's now normal, Stu, a set piece specialist in the ranks. It's just normal now, isn't it, to have that coach? But it was something that back in the day, never heard of that. It was just well, just get the ball in there and get the goal. But yeah, it's become much more modern with these set pieces. But that's the football we're watching now.
How are you about the new ownership? Of course, took 80+%, didn't they? That's what they bought into within the club. What are your thoughts and feelings on that? Obviously, Daniel Levy, synonymous with the club for so many years. But have you seen any changes, anything different in terms of the ownership of the club in the short spell that they've been in?
Nothing crazy at the moment. They made a few changes at the beginning before Daniel was even off. I think the biggest surprise is the timing of it. Obviously, we went into the season with Daniel Levy. He actually did some quite big interviews, which he doesn't normally do with the media. But he actually sat down and spoke to people like Gary Neville. I know that he done an interview with Simon Jordan as well, and he does rarely come out and speak. And I think, listen, I've been there the entire time Daniel Levy came in, when Enid came in, and they brought, obviously, from Alan Sugar. There is still a huge legacy that guy's put in place and built. Obviously, the stadium is probably going to be the biggest thing that he's done in terms of accomplishments, but that's no small feat. I know people will say, well, it's only a stadium, it's not winning a trophy, but at the end of the day, for what it generates, the revenue. We just had the boxing the other week. It's the NFL contract's just been extended. There's concerts going on. I know it's not exactly what you want as a purist football fan. However, in this day and age, to compete with the kind of ownerships that are going on anywhere else, you have to have some sort of other way of making money. And I think that's probably going to be his lasting legacy for most of it. Obviously, not many trophies in the tenure, just two, but he goes out with a bit of a bang, I guess, with the Europa. I guess that's something for him, and I know you could tell how pleased he was with that. But yeah, I think the Lewis family coming in, I think first and foremost, a lot of Spurs fans were thinking, well, there's going to be a big buyout. Somebody's going to come in from the Middle East and they're going to throw huge wads of money at us. But I think what's been very telling is that there's this constant, thing coming out of the club where it's basically, we are not for sale. Now, I know that doesn't mean anything, because that can sometimes mean we are for sale. So you just got to make the right offer. And anything is for sale for the right offer. But I think the Lewis family have made the change. Obviously, we've got a lot more of them involved with the club. I think the big thing is what's going to happen in January. I would imagine, Stu, for the sake of them wanting to get off to a good start with the fan base, they'll probably spend some money just to sort of show face. I think they'll do that. And I think the biggest thing is the wage structure. It's not how much we spend, it's actually the wage structure that's sort of held us down a little bit. And don't get me wrong, players get enough money. I'm not saying 200 grand ain't enough, Stu. Believe me, I'll take it. I'll take that for a year, for 10 years, But you know what I mean? Like the other teams around us in that top 5, top 6 now have sort of broken that mould. And Daniel Levy never wanted to do that. He never wanted to go past 200,000. So I think in order for us to sort of break through, we're probably going to have to at some point. And I think that's probably some of the leverage we'll get now, that maybe Daniel Levy wasn't too interested in doing. But from, listen, from a pure business, and look, there's been plenty of clubs. Then you've got to look at Leeds back in the day, Stu, of Ridsdale, when they spent huge amounts of money, and they had a couple of good seasons, had a good run in the Champions League, but then where did they end up? They ended up in the Championship, and even below that, and it took them quite a while to get back up. So, yeah, I know people will moan about the business model, but you have to have it in this day and age. You definitely have to have it. I mean, yourselves now, Stu, with Everton, with the new stadium, you'll probably get some more benefits as well, I would imagine.
Well, we've had the rugby league. We had one of the tests in the rugby league, didn't we? And it went superbly. The Aussie fans that came in, the English rugby fans as well, just saying how good the stadium is. I think there's stuff to do on the stadium, don't get me wrong, in the concourses and things like that when I went. But just night and day, as much as I love Goodison, a bit like yourself, White Hart Lane, the history, going as a kid and being there for so many years. But aesthetically and the way it's been designed, it's amazing. Although we were at the top of the South Stand, and it is the steepest in world football.
Yeah,
it was like trying to go up a sodding mountain, John. And to top it off, we were row 64, which is the back row.
Right.
But there's not a bad view in the house. You know yourself, with your stadium, you can be sat anywhere in there. And again, it's the amount of money we're going to generate with all the other stuff. So, we're following you guys in that respect. And hopefully we can get bigger events like you've had as well, back in Liverpool.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
I'd like to move us along just to the North London derby, of course. Yourselves and Arsenal. Arsenal have had a fantastic start, of course. They are top as things stand. Gabriel is out. He's out for a couple of months. He's been pivotal at the back with Saliba, of course. But what are your thoughts and feelings leading into this weekend's game? How do you think it'll go from your perspective?
Well, I'm not going to lie, Stu. I'm not going in with any great hope, because as tough as it is to say, Arsenal have been very good this season. I mean, the best team in the Premier League by far, in my opinion, consistently. So it is a bit of a worry. However, the only thing that is going well for us is our away form. So I would have to hope and hang my hat on that Spurs can go there and try and give them a few problems. I would say very much going in, I don't know. I just don't fancy Spurs showing up and, I don't know, doing. I don't think it'll be your typical North London derby of gun-ho stuff. I think Arteta, if you've looked at him over the last few years when he's played Tottenham, he's actually not fallen into that trap, and he's played it very sensible. So it'll be fascinating to see if Thomas Frank matches that from a tactical point of view and says, let's not just make it like a derby, let's actually sit back and let them come at us. And I think that might work to our advantage more. Obviously, under Ange, there was only one way of playing. That's just go forward. Don't worry about how many goals we can see, but as long as we're going forward, that was enough for him. So that might change. But, always a big game on the calendar, Stu, as I'm sure it is when you play Liverpool. It's one of those ones you look at the fixtures and you think that's when it's happening. But is it a good time to play them at the moment? Probably not. But we, as long as I think we go there and we don't embarrass ourselves, Stu, and come away with something horrible, I think that'll be enough for me.
Can you get a point?
I think that's what I think of the maximum I'd like to see us get. I mean, if we can, I'll be very happy with that, to say the least, given Arsenal's form. But like I say, they're hitting on all cylinders at the moment, and I think Arteta, if you look at as a project manager, how long he's been there to influence, he's probably got all the players now that he's ever wanted in that squad. It's taken a long time. Don't get me wrong; they haven't won anything. I know people keep hitting him around the head with that, but at the end of the day, he's been there for such a long time now that he's now almost, you'd say, got that last bit of puzzle sorted out, whether it be the striker. He's got a few extra players in those positions. Eze's another one as well. So, yeah, I think it'll be a difficult game, but, I'm not going to rule us out completely because of our away form. But I think as long as we play sensible and like we have been away, we've got a chance.
I think Vicario's been good for you, and he made the saves early on in our game. Again, you watch him week in, week out. From what I've seen, I think he's been very, very good, because we could have had a couple of goals. He's made 2 really good saves, and you go and hammer us then. That was just the way the game went. But they say about David Raya, I think Vicario, you can say he's been consistent.
Yeah, he's a great shot stopper. There's no doubt about it. The thing with the flaws with him is when his decision making with kicks, and then of course the modern day goalkeeper has to be more than just a goalkeeper now. Suddenly they've got to be Pele with the ball control and get it out and do all these kinds. And I think that's probably where he comes unstuck. But if you think, Stu, a couple of years ago, when I remember playing Everton, it was that game actually, and you lot decided to gang up on him and just make it. And he was terrible on corners. Every time we had a corner against us or a free kick, you were like, "Oh my God, here we go again." Now that's stopped now, so obviously there has been an improvement, and he's not. You're not feeling like, "Blimey, here we go again." So. He's decent. He's decent. There's no doubt about it. I just think it just depends with how you keep playing all the time. If it's going to be constantly playing it out from the back, I think you're just asking for trouble sometimes. But the one thing I've seen with Thomas Frank is he doesn't mind going long, which I'm for, because you can't keep playing one way if it's not working. It's quite a stubborn thing to be just keep doing it over and over again, and you're not getting the ball out of your own half. So it's things like that. But no, I know there was a few mentions of that. If you saw the video where Van der Ven went off and he didn't react to Thomas Frank when he said, come stay on the pitch and stuff like that. And I know people made a big deal about that. But for me, that's the sort of emotion I want to see. He was upset. He was annoyed we didn't carry on and win the game. That was the game against United. That we thought we'd had in the bag, 2-1, Richarlison's shirt off. You thought it was done and dusted. And then, of course, the goal comes in from the corner. And when I see things like that, I don't make so much of it. I mean, I don't know if it's just because we come from a different generation, stupid. Like, we used to see that all the time in the old Premier League stuff, like loads of back and forths between manager and player. And also, this whole thing of staying out on the pitch to clap the fans, that wasn't always a thing either. So times have changed. Like, you never used to see the manager go around and clap everyone back in the day. I'm sure Fergie never done that after every single game. But it is a new thing. And it's not that I mind it or anything, but I think people can feed too much into that sometimes. And straight after a game, emotions are high. And at the end of the day, they're professional athletes that want to win. I don't mind that personally.
No, it's just part of it. It's part of it. It's just how it's gone. Definitely. Yeah. And that's what I don't like them being pally in the warm-ups and stuff like that.
No, I'm a bit like Roy Keane now. I gets on my nerves a bit. You know what I mean? Sunday. If I see that Sunday Spurs players at the beginning, having a little bit of banter, that's not what you want to see.
No,
save that for after the game. Do all that then, but you do not want to see that. Before the game, you want to be focused, and I think you need it, Stu. I really do. I think sometimes the game misses it quite a lot these days because there is too much of that. But just my opinion, anyway.
Definitely. I remember Casey Keller when he was at your lot, and I was at the game at Goodison. Chris Woods was our goalkeeping coach,
right?
And that's fine. He came over, and we could hear it all because it was like down by the touchline. I get that. Trainers and players, but once the game's over, fair enough. But you need to be in the mindset of winning. And
there was you remember a few years back, there was the scenarios where players were swapping shirts at half time.
No, absolutely not. No. We're at war.
It's
We're
just
at war for 100 minutes. I think it's a mindset that I totally get it. Do away with it. It's daft.
Yeah,
it is daft.
I'm with you.
How are you with England? I like talking to you about internationals when you come on, of course. Tuchel, he's had over a year now in the job, hasn't he? Just how he's got on so far, and they've not succeeded.
I'll be honest with you. Anytime there's international break, I'm like, I roll my eyes because I kind of get upset that Premier League. I mean, it's so stop-start at the moment with international. So many games at the moment. Obviously, though, you can't take away the fact that he's gone through it. I mean, look, did I expect us to qualify? Yes. I think given the way this process is, and this is why I end up watching Ireland games, Wales games and Scotland games, because there's a little bit more in it for him, and what happened with Ireland the last two games was incredible. And that's a journey you want to go on. But with England, it's very much like, we know we can win. Actually, what England fans really want is like some Premier League crazy performance from the players, which, I'll be honest, it won't happen. Not in those games, because those teams you play, because they haven't got the quality, they just low block. So you're just constantly trying to play a completely different way. But for me, look, you got to give him his flowers. He's not conceded a goal. I think it's the only time England have done that to qualify. He's won all the games. Squad-wise, this whole thing with Jude Bellingham, and leaving him out and stuff like that, I don't mind that. And I'll tell you why, Stu. I think for me, the whole thing with him doing that, I think he's done that intentionally. In the last World Cup, Jude Bellingham, every single time he was playing, it was like, if Jude doesn't play well, then it's on England. Do you know what I mean? It's all about him all of a sudden. And I think by dropping him and having other players come in, he's basically saying to England, right, look, even if Jude is not about, we can still win games. And I think he's trying to take the pressure off him a little bit. And from Jude Bellingham's point of view, I love a player who wants to win and is competitive and gets the ump if he's coming off. I mean, if you're not, I don't really know you should be playing, if you know what I mean. Who does enjoy coming off the pitch? And again, he's only young. You forget how young he is. He's playing for the biggest club in the world, in Real Madrid. There won't be much more pressure than that every week. I'm sure he gets that a lot and critiqued. So I don't mind all that sort of thing, Stu. But whether England go next year and actually go all the way is another thing. I think two things that would worry me. The heat is going to be a big problem. If I was Thomas Tuchel now, all my friendlies would be over in South America. I would play every single one of them and have your camps over there and get them acclimatised quick, because I do think that'll be a huge, big problem for England. And secondly, it'll just be the luck of the draw. If you look at Gareth Southgate, I do believe he was handed quite fortunate run-ups to the finals and semis and stuff like that, but that will only happen so many times. And again, the World Cup, Stu, like everything, is just becoming more bloated. There's even more teams going in it, and then I hear they want to add another 8 teams to the next one in 2030 or whatever. So yeah, it's becoming more bloated. I think the quality becomes less, and then by the time you get to the finals, the players are probably knackered out from all these games, So but from your point of view, Stu, obviously I see the top one there. You've been watching from an outsider. Do you enjoy the international stuff still?
Not. It's been a pain just how frequent it stops the league. We've had 3 periods where it stopped the league. The Club World Cup was a pain during the summer. I'm sorry, I know it's money and how much it generates and all the rest of it. Those games could be played during the summer had we not have had that tournament. I just think when there isn't anything going on, play a load of games so we don't have all this going on. With Wales, I think absolutely brilliant the other night. North Macedonia had only conceded 3 goals in 7, and they'd drawn with Belgium twice. Belgium went on to win the group. The Liechtenstein game, like you're saying, teams make it difficult. They had players behind the ball for most of it. We got the 1-0. And then absolutely obliterated North Macedonia, who were second in the group. We were on the same points, but they had better goal difference. They played brilliant the other night. They really, really did. But again, the job's not over. We've got the semi-final playoff in Cardiff against Bosnia, and then it's either Italy or Northern Ireland in the final, but we get a home berth in that as well. I don't think Italy are the Italy of old. Again, it's going to be tricky, but I think we've always got a chance in Cardiff. Harry Wilson, David Brooks, Brennan, obviously, brilliant, absolutely brilliant the other night. They linked up so well. There's work to be done. It would have been nice to have qualified, but Bellamy, it's very attacking, and that was to our detriment against Belgium over the 2 games, because in the home game in Cardiff, for that opening 25 minutes, we were all over him. We were all over Belgium, but we didn't take the chances. But I just hope we can qualify, mate. We need to be in the tournaments like we have been for the last 10 years.
I'll be rooting for you, mate. Like I say, when I get to these international breaks, I rarely care too much about England, just because it's a bit of a boring game half the time. So I'm always switching over to the other UK teams that we've got, and obviously, like I said, the drama we've got with you guys, Ireland, Scotland, even was incredible. So yeah, I'm always rooting for them. I know that Ireland, people say they were celebrating over the top because they've still got to go through another game, and I get that. But for them, I mean, they haven't been in and around this for a long old time, so you can see why it means a lot. And I was quite happy with Troy Parrott. I mean, again,
Yeah,
he's someone
yeah.
that Spurs let go from a very young age, and we've seen him do so well in Holland. But obviously, he's making quite the name for himself on that international stage, which I have to say, Stu, in this day and age, it's unusual to, like you used to watch international teams. I'm sure people used to go, I'd love him to play for my team. But very rarely do we ever get a player that nowadays where you sort of like, you don't already know about him. But I think Troy Parrott sort of made a little bit of a thing for himself over this past international week, just reminding everybody. And I guarantee there'll be a few Premier League clubs sort of sniffing around him a bit now.
He was always floating around on Football Manager.
Yeah.
I loaned him all the time, especially was in the lower leagues. So great performance of a night from him. But like you say, the job they've still got a job like ourselves,
Yeah, it's a hard
But
one.
I've always been about all the home nations getting into the tournament. So fingers crossed they can all get in it. It'd be great. Obviously, Northern Ireland and Wales, it's going to be one of them potentially.
Yeah,
One is going to go out, maybe two, possibly depending on how it goes. But we need to be in these tournaments every year now. It does my head in because in the 90s and the 2000s, we had such a good team. Wales probably had the better squad than we had. When Bale was coming through, we had Bale, didn't we? He was the elite level player. He got us over the line. But we should have qualified in the 90s with that team. Said it for years, mate. But yeah, we expect it now as a nation. Wales, we really, really do. We want to be in it every single time. So yeah, that side of it is great. Just going back before we go, you were saying about top four. You alluded to it. Can that happen? You were saying about players coming back from injury, so you'll have a bit more depth again. I think you've worked the transfer market well. I think you've been very good that way. Can that be realistic for you? The top four in your mind?
Not this season. I'd be more than happy with a top 7 finish. I know that probably sounds quite basic and boring, but again, we finished 17th last year. The one spot out of relegation. It weren't a great season. It was terrible. And I do think he's got to fix quite a lot at home. If our home record was better and it wasn't, 3 wins in the last 20 or whatever it is, I think you'd probably see us up there even more. But what helps us is a lot of the other teams haven't been that consistent this year, Stu. So that's helped Tottenham a little bit, fortunately for us. But I for this season, I'd take top 7. For next season, I say push for top 5, and then so on and so on. But I think I really do feel you've got to give him a chance. He's not coming into a team that's on the highs. We've lost Son as well, and I know Son at the back end wasn't the old Son, but it's still a big figure to lose in your team. We don't have that Harry Kane who's going to come up with a goal, and crikey, to talk about him just quick. I mean, his goal record this season, incredible for Bayern Munich. I mean, it's insane the stuff he's doing out there and the records he's breaking. I know people might look at the Bundesliga as not a fantastic league, but you still got to score the goals. It's who's in front of you. And I always said Harry Kane, if he'd have played for Man City or another club that had all these players to feed into him, he'd have probably scored double the amount that he has done, because he's played in a lot of poor Tottenham teams, I can tell you, Stu, over the years, but he's still managed to score,
The fact that he stayed all them years as well, though, John, do you know what I mean? It was always touted. He could go here, he could go there. He was very loyal. He was very loyal to you guys again, and it's amazing and great for him and great for the Bundesliga having an international player coming in and doing it, not necessarily a German, which you tend to associate. Take Lewandowski out of it, of course, because he's been brilliant at the pole, but. It's great to see. You could argue him and Haaland, they're the most informed strikers in the world, aren't they, at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. And I know Kane gets a lot of critics, and every time we come out of a competition with England, everyone says, well, we've got to find somebody else before the next one. But then what happens? You get round again, and he's still the guy with the numbers. He's still the guy with the statistics. So it's very hard to not pick him, to be honest with you. I mean, where else do you go? But I think sometimes he gets a lot of flack because he drops deep and stuff like this. But I do think as an all-round player, he's more of a footballer. His assist record is just as, is very good for a player who scores that many goals. And he just has a bit of everything in his game. I just hope that, and for England's sake, and I think he will with Thomas Tuchel, because Tuchel managed him at Bayern. I think that they'll play to his strengths a little bit more in the World Cup. And I think that's what maybe was lacking a little bit under Gareth.
100%. No, great. Absolutely brilliant. Where do you think Everton will finish? I love hearing from an outsider about us. I'm relatively happy that win against Fulham off the back of getting levered by you guys was major. We're only 3 or 4 points off like the top 4 or 5 as it stands.
Yeah, I'm looking now.
I think Moyes has done amazing. I really do. People were letting him have it a few weeks ago when we had that bad run. But who else at the moment for us? But, from you on the outside looking in, how do you feel Moyes and Everton?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. And I think you've got to remember, look, there's only so many places. There's 20 teams, and it's never been as evenly distributed in money, TV money that everyone gets now. It's not like it used to be. Tottenham, Everton included, were these clubs that these bigger clubs used to come in and go, right, we'll have your best players. And that was it. You just had to concede, and they go for a bit of money, and that's it. You're supposed to be happy, and you go on again. That's changed now. A lot of these teams like Aston Villa, even you look at Bournemouth and Brighton, for instance, what they've been doing over the past few years. It's a much more even playing field. So there's only so many spots. So I think the fact that Everton and David Moyes is doing as well as he is for you at the moment, given where you were in particular, I think he's brought a lot more stability to the club, and that's probably what you needed first and foremost. Grealish has been a great acquisition. From everything I've seen of him, he's working his socks off. I'm disappointed. I don't know if he'll get that call up, but I actually think he's someone I would take personally, just because the amount of fouls that bloke draws. I mean, if you've got a good set piece, he's going to get you. You bring him on at the end of a game, Stu. If it's not going your way, you bring him on, and he'll come up with some magic. I really enjoy him. I've always enjoyed him as a player.
Back to a free roll, John. Back to what he did for City. I know there was changes in the squad at City. I understand it changes, and you have your shelf life sometimes. Moyes has just told him, just do what you were doing at peak City, even Villa, where he was the head honcho at Villa. He is, but again, just confidence. And I don't want him getting picked for England in a selfish way. Just to keep him fit. But again, we haven't got games till March now, have we? But what a revelation, and the crosses and endearing himself to the club. And I just hope we can sign him long term.
Yeah. I've heard that he wants to stay that end of the country as well. So could be a good sign for you. But yeah, I mean, he seems, that's the thing I like about him, Stu, is you get those players and they want to embrace themselves in the club culture. They want to, and he's like that. You can tell he wanted to be right in there, the rapport with the fans and all things like that. So I think he's really good for Everton, and quite a good coup for you guys at the time. But again, it'll probably be down to recruitment, Stu, I guess, for you guys as well, much like Tottenham. And again, it's very difficult in such a populated market. I know people go, well, you just go out and spend 100 million. 100 million these days, Stu, ain't like spending 100 million. But, you can get 100 million. They can be a flop. That's the difference these days, and we've seen a lot of them. Look at Pepe at Arsenal, 70-odd million quid. They can still happen. It's not about just throwing money at them. That's why I take my hat off to these models like Brighton and Tony Bloom that's done it. And obviously, we're seeing a bit of a rise in Scotland now from Hearts. But if you think if that model works in England, you think what it could actually do in Scotland, it's probably got a better chance. It's going to make their league a little bit more interesting, I would imagine, over the next few years. But yeah, you look at the clubs, you've got your Fulhams. So yeah, I would expect you guys, top 10, I think, this season, Stu. 12th to sort of 8th, I would be happy. I know it's probably not sounding too amazing, but with maybe a cup run like an FA Cup or something, I think that's That's where I would see you guys.
The big problem we've got, like a lot of clubs, you're hearing from Sunderland manager about it. They've got a lot of African players. We're going to lose Iliman and Jai. And Jai and Grealish have been our best two players. Illy has been unbelievable.
Yeah.
Again, he's got 3.5 years left on this deal, but there's teams circling, of course, because he's ruthless in front of goal and what he brings to the team. But we're losing him. We're losing Idrissa Gueye. Idrissa Gueye, it's like the fountain of youth in that midfield engine room with him. Like other clubs have got more African players going, but we are losing two pivotal players.
I'm a little bit worried about Spurs, to be honest, because with Kudus, but also Pat Matasar, who I've been a massive fan of since we've signed him. He's a bit under the radar a lot of the times, but he's a fantastic player. Honestly, Stu, he will really. For me, he's going to be one of the next big things for me in that central midfield player. But again, he'll be off. We still, believe it or not, we still do have Basuma, but he's been injured for a while. He's not in the good books of Thomas Frank because he kept turning up late, is the thing. But yeah, we've got a similar problem. But like you say, a lot of clubs are going to have that. And obviously when it's two of your best players, Stu, that is going to be a bit of a hole to fill. So you probably need something in that time, I would imagine. What is the financial... I mean, is there enough, Stu, to be saying, right, we'll go out, or is it, loans and
the strike has been the problem? Beto not firing, then he's rotating it between him and Barry. Barry will get the rub of the green a little bit because of his age, and he got clapped off in the last game against Fulham. He had one chalked off. We had like 3 goals disallowed in the game. Dewsbury Halls was a goal, even with VAR saying it wasn't. But hey ho, we got over the line and we beat them. It's confidence with Barry, I think. He's putting himself about and he's getting himself in the areas. He missed that chance up at Sunderland. Moyes then took him off on 55 minutes. He's shaking his head going off, but he's kind of stuck with Barry. That lad needs a goal. There's no two ways about it. But linked with Ivan Toney heavily. Whether we can get him or not, I don't know, because there's so many teams wanting him. My other issue is with Njai, Beto and Idrissa going, he needs to be integrating people like Tyler Diblin needs game time before they go. Merlin Roll, who we've got from Germany, that they're high on him, big physical lad. He needs game time as well. If we don't get players in January, they're going to be rusty. They've not had enough minutes. So he's going to have to integrate them over the next month, I feel. They need game time, John. It's pivotal for them going forward and that we can kick on in the league.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just looking at the league now, mate. It's so clustered with what's going on. But, it could be one of the first times I think the clubs that have come up from the Championship really got a good chance, I'd say.
Definitely. Mr. Crow is in the comments there. Hello.
Afternoon, Rich.
All good. Sorry, John, I jumped in then.
I should, while Rich is there, I should mention Charlton. My other love, Stu, my second club is Millwall, because a lot of my family are Millwall fans. And so me and Rich have a lot of back and forth with the old Championship stuff. Obviously now Charlton are in that league, but I'll tell you what, they're a good team to watch. They've done really well. I know we talk a lot about Birmingham that come up, Wrexham, but also Charlton have been really good defensively this season, from what I've seen. So just to give them a little shout, little plug there, Stu.
Come on, the Addicts. Absolutely. John, great having you on. Looking forward to the game. I'm off, so I'll be able to watch the game live, which is crucial to me, and all the best for it. As good as Arsenal playing, you play good football, you're good going forward. So again, a draw, I don't think a draw's out the question there, I really don't. And just a big performance from you guys.
I'll take your positivity, Stu. I'll take it.
And then, yes, absolutely. And we'll be back very, very soon for episode 88 of Football Then and Now. I'll be back with some retro stuff. And I've also got a Man City fan coming on next week, Tom Parry. He wants to talk about them being one of the most favoured clubs years ago when he was growing up. And then when all the money came in and the success, they were hated. It's the usual scenario. So yeah, Tom Parry will be my guest for 2 episodes, a bit of current, then we're going into retro Man City. That will be next week. Leading into the Christmas period, of course. Chocker, but we're going to try and do as much content as we can. John, thank you so much for coming on again. All the best to Tottenham domestically and in the Champions League, as I'll be looking out for you. All the best in the Champions League. And thank you to the listeners and viewers as always. And we'll see you next week for episode 88 of Football Then and Now. Take care, everybody.
Football then and now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us.